Welcome to Building the Future. I'm your host, Kevin Horick. You can check out new episodes of the show every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. If you missed an episode or want to get more information about the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Cameron Brown. He's an international speaker, high-performance coach, connector, nomad, founder at the Thriving Collective. Cameron, welcome to the show.
Kevin, excited to be here, dude. Really looking forward to today.
Yeah, man. We chatted a while ago, and I just kind of before we even chatted, I was reading up on what you're doing, and I think it's super interesting and kind of innovative. But maybe before we kind of get into exactly you and kind of the Thriving Collective, let's step back a second and kind of start off with kind of where you grew up.
Definitely. So grew up, probably people can already tell, Australia. Outback Australia though, pretty remote place in Australia. Even had a kangaroo as a pet growing up.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Okay, wait. Before you continue, walk me through that a little bit, because obviously I think like a lot of my listeners are in kind of North America and maybe even into Europe. So I think most of us probably, if not probably maybe nobody that listens to the show has had that. So walk us through what is that like? Is that common in kind of Australia? Is that not?
No,
really?
It's not really common. I mean, there are a lot of kangaroos around, especially in regional areas. But to have one as a pet's not we were probably the only ones that I knew had one growing up. And but yeah, she was awesome. She lived for over 20 years, and
wow.
She was a very, very important part of our lives, and that's
So did she sleep with you kind of like a dog would, or she has her own like space in the house, or like do you even keep them inside?
I mean, we had a time where growing up she had like a diaper on, jumping around the house, and we built this little pouch for her. She would stay outside and do her own thing, but loved getting fed almonds and banana and little rice cakes and things like that.
Sure, that's amazing, man. I love that.
Yeah. She was awesome.
So that's great. So walk me through kind of exactly what the Thriving Collective is, and why did you decide to found that?
Yeah, there's been a number of defining moments in my life. I moved away from the farm and the town that I grew up in after schooling, so around 18 years of age. Went to university for a couple of years and then completely dropped out. Definitely wasn't the right time for me.
What did you take in university? Just
psychology.
Okay.
Psychology. So I lasted a couple of years and was partying way too much and definitely went off the rails big time. And it wasn't until a couple of years or a year or two after that that I really started getting my life back on track a little. I went back and studied audio engineering because of the music that I was creating. I wanted to learn how to be able to record and to go with the writing that I was doing. And then went into retail for a number of years, but then realized that even though I enjoyed it, it wasn't really my calling. And it took a number of more years before something really hit me hard. And that was in a night in 2010. And I heard a neighbor screaming out one evening in the city that I was living in, and ran over and found out that she'd just found her son and he committed suicide earlier that day. And yeah, it was, myself and another neighbor ran through the house and out to the backyard to see everything that plays out when something like that happens, and to see the absolute devastation that goes through a family when something like that occurs is something that will stay with me for the rest of my life, and I can't even begin to imagine what that family would have gone through. And so out of that, it was a moment of, look, here you are living an okay life. And there's people that need help. What the hell are you doing about it, man?
Sure.
And so it was a big wake up call for me. And a few months after that, I enrolled in a first coaching course. I'd already done a lot of personal development and had discovered that a real love for that.
Sure.
But the next 12, 24 months was just a mass transformation of me personally, getting rid of any of the limiting patterns that I might have been having in my own life. to be able to become my own best friend, to be able to become the best version of myself, and continue to step up and to be able to help other people do the same. And I felt that if I could empower as many people on this planet to live happier and more fulfilling lives, then that's going to lead them to do more good in the world, and that's what could end up allowing us to create massive change in the world, which is what we need. And so that was a big moment for me. And then the other one, I mean, there's been, like I said, there's been a number of them, but the other big one for me was a relationship a significant relationship of mine came to an end in the late 2014. And by the time everything was done and dusted, I moved out in February, the start of February in 2015. And I really had questions about where my life was heading and what I really wanted, and was what I had thought I wanted what I really wanted, or what other people had wanted for me, or something that I had perceived that other people wanted for me. And it turned out that that was what the case was. And so for the next, in February and March, I went skydiving and abseiling and rock climbing and rappelling down waterfalls and mountain climbing and gliding and whitewater rafting. Just a number of different experiences. Went overseas for the first time and realized that life was really about experiences, not things. And that's led me on a huge journey now to creating the Thriving Collective, which came out of realizing again that it's all about experiences, not things, and then running events in last year in New York and LA and Toronto, and creating experiences for people. Like we had beach tennis on Santa Monica Beach for the people that attended the event there, and an illusionist in Toronto and a mentalist in New York. It was amazing. And then it really just is about empowering people to dream bigger and live fully and make an impact, because when good people do that, they tend to do more good with that, and that's what can truly change the world.
Sure. No, I think that's great. And I want to dive deeper into kind of exactly what you're doing. You kind of just roughly touched on it. But when we originally talked, you basically sold most of your kind of possessions to kind of start this thing and kind of just travel and not be kind of tied down. So do you want to kind of walk me and the listener through that again? Because to me, that's just brave in itself, right? And I love how you kind of took something negative and kind of maybe events that were kind of good and bad in your past to kind of start this thing and kind of inspire others. And I think that in itself is inspirational. So do you kind of maybe want to walk us through kind of why you decided to kind of just purge everything and
just get rid of everything,
for it, right? Because I think a lot of people don't have the balls to even start something new or take a baby step towards something, where you are just kind of like jumped right in the deep end and went for it, right? And I love that, and I think that's inspiring.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And yeah, let me take you through it, because if you had said even 6 months ago that I'd be where I am, I would have said you're crazy. I had no intention of being in Costa Rica right now. But yeah, there's some parts there that I think really help those tuning into this, because it's helped me just incredible amounts over the past couple of years.
Totally.
So obviously out of the relationship breakup and learning to grow through that rather than get stuck in patterns of behavior that might be dysfunctional. Whenever there's been a time in my life when there's been a challenge, and that could be a negative or a positive, I think the thing that's allowed me to step into the version of myself that I'm wanting to become is constantly making a decision where we get delivered experiences to us that allow us to decide in those moments which way we're going to go. And I see so many people make decisions that are based on fear rather than what they really want and what's aligned to them. And so out of the experiences, in 2015 and then going into 2016, I was running peer network events in Australia. I mean, I had 4 locations set out in 2015 and ran them, and they were amazing and got to meet some incredible people. And then just thought, well, if I could do that, then maybe I could expand it overseas. And then I just picked 2 places and thought, all right, I'll build some relationships there. And I use LinkedIn, and that's a number one tool for me in terms of building initial relationships. It's a phenomenal tool when you know how to use that effectively. And so I built relationships, didn't even know how to dial a US phone number 15 months ago. And then 4 months later, I was running events there. And I remember flying back after running the first events there in March 2016.
Yeah.
Flying back thinking there's stuff in my house back home that is just sitting there, wasting away, and it would be better off somewhere else.
Okay.
And it was just this feeling that, and I think when each of you tuning in to this podcast, when you tune in, you get insights coming through to you about which way you should be going if you're quiet enough to listen. I often say in the engagements or when I'm with clients, silence speaks to you if you're silent enough to hear it.
Interesting.
But often that our biggest breakthroughs come directly after our biggest breakdowns.
Totally. Yep.
because we're not listening.
No, totally.
And it often takes for a massive slap across the face before we actually realize, that thing. Because you look back over time and you think, yeah, you know what? I could have seen this coming a long time ago if I'd really looked at it. But often hindsight's a beautiful thing. But I think if we tune in a lot deeper to ourselves, we can uncover that a lot sooner than what we maybe can do currently. And so I felt that small pull towards it in March, and then I went back and ran the events in New York, LA again, and expanded it to Toronto as well.
Sure.
And then flying back, there was an even bigger pull towards getting rid of stuff, and just the feeling of detachment from that, and questioning ownership as well, thinking, well, do I really own it? I mean, it's made up of stuff that's been here for billions of years. So
sure.
Do I really? And I'm still questioning that theory of ownership. And I'm a big believer now from a shared economy point of view, and it's a much more sustainable way to live. And so when I came back, I just recorded new music in LA, in Santa Monica, and was deciding how to launch and what we do to create the buzz. And it just came and slowly but surely delivered into getting rid of stuff, and also traveling the world and staying in places around the world that have grand pianos so that I can play as I go. And I'm looking forward to staying in a boat in Belgium later this year that has a beautiful grand piano. It's this old school boat. But it's been that sense of curiosity with all of these pieces playing out of, well, if I could do that, then I wonder what else is possible.
Sure.
And if I could create this, then I wonder what else is possible. And I think that and strongly believe that curiosity is one of the most underutilized yet most valuable skills that people in business and in life can develop. And we lose sight of that as adults because we become adults and we've got to be serious and we've got to grow up. I've got to say that's BS.
Yeah.
You can still have fun and still create amazing things while having a huge amount of fun at the same time, because curiosity is the gateway to creativity. And if you don't open up to curiosity, then you're closing off from creativity, and you're closing off from all the sea of opportunities that are available to you out there. And so, my belief is that you have certainty in your outcome and then have flexibility in your approach, have curiosity about how you might get there, how far you might exceed that expectation, what it might look like when you actually arrive, because you might be pleasantly surprised, as I have been constantly, time and time again, and same with clients now as well, about what you actually are able to create when you build this momentum up, and the curiosity tends to then feed off itself.
Sure. So you've talked about these kind of events in major cities across the globe, and you keep kind of mentioning about kind of future events and things that you've done. So what exactly are these kind of events, and what is the whole kind of Dream, Live, Give movement that you're promoting and kind of, living yourself?
Yeah, so two parts to that. The first, around Dream, Live, Give. So Dream, Live, Give stands for dreaming big, living fully, making an impact.
Sure.
I believe that the more people that do that, they're not only dreaming big, but they're also living exactly how they want to live and succeeding in how they want to succeed. But they're also doing it in a way that's not only good for them, but also good for others on the planet too. Because a lot of gurus are promoting certain pieces, and I would just say that's potentially, and I'm still grappling with this, it's potentially speeding up the rate in which we actually screw everything up. Because if we continue living in excess, then what happens to the resources that we've got? Granted, there's other things that are available to us out there in the universe if we can get to them, other planets and things like that, but we're nowhere near that yet.
Yeah,
And
totally.
I remember watching a documentary a little while ago called I Am,
Okay.
and it would say it's a guy who did the early Jim Carrey movies. He produced those, and he had all the money, like the Ace Ventura and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally.
The real stupid ones, and so loved them. I loved them to pieces.
Oh, I did too. I've
But
seen both of them probably more times than I can remember. So I'm right
yeah.
there with you, man.
Yeah, definitely. And so he had the big mansion and had everything that he could ever wanted from a materialistic point of view,
Sure.
and realized that didn't really satisfy, it didn't really fulfill, and he went on this journey to talk to different experts around the world about what this thing is that we're creating. And towards the end of it, there's one thing that really stuck with me, and he said, what do we call something that takes more than it needs? And he paused for a moment, and he said, we call it cancer.
Interesting. Wow.
And
wow, that's interesting.
yeah, that hit me big time, because I thought, holy crap, we as a species right now are a cancer. We're taking more than we need, and that's leading to what we're seeing now in terms of climate change, other resources dwindling away. There's talk about shifting and changing, and there's some things being done. We need to make some dramatic shifts. And so that's, for me, that the whole Dream, Live, Give campaign is allowing people to still have an amazing life, but do it in a way that's in alignment with our planet, because that's what's going to allow us to then speed up the rate in which we thrive, and speed up the rate in which we live in harmony with the planet, in alignment with the planet, versus trying to control it. So that's a big part of it. And so I wanted to be the living and breathing example of what that looks like. And so, getting rid of 99% of the things I used to own, not having a car, not having any emission type activity there. I walk most of the places that I go, or it's shared rides. I eat a vegan diet. There's living in different places around the world as well that are already there, and not needing a massive mansion, for example. It's me showcasing that. And the other part to it is showcasing firsthand that we can actually utilize technology to improve our performance and improve our mental health, and enhance our ability to build relationships and opportunities with people, no matter where you are in the world, and with whoever you like in the world. And me dropping myself into countries that I've never been to before, knowing nobody here, and still being able to run a company, build relationships and opportunities in different parts of the world. It's, again, for me, if I'm going to teach it and coach people on it and speak on it, I want to be a living and breathing example of that, rather than just being a theory expert.
Sure. No, I love that. And to your point a little bit earlier about how you've leveraged like social networks like LinkedIn to make connections globally, to when you maybe go to certain places that you like, you've met a couple people online that you could maybe meet in person one day, or like even you and I met on, I think it was LinkedIn or Twitter. It'd be one of those two, right? I can't remember exactly which network.
LinkedIn.
But like, yeah. Okay. See, exactly. Right. And I've met, I've had majority of people on the show I've met on kind of social media, right? And like the fact that you're across the world right now, like I'm in Canada, you're in Costa Rica, it's amazing, right? And then this show's going to air in a bunch of markets in America, and and then online, it's amazing, right? And to your point a few minutes ago, like we all should be thinking about doing business and making connections globally. And it doesn't really matter where you are nowadays physically. You can have conversations and meet people across the world from wherever you're sitting, right? And I love that, and I love how you put on these kind of events and you're doing things throughout the world, right? And I love this section of your website, like where in the world is Cameron right now, and like you have like your next few months laid out for you, and like what you're doing there. I think that's kind of fascinating, right? And so just to kind of get back to the second part of my question, like you've run these events in kind of these big cities. So walk us through some of these kind of events. Like you mentioned playing tennis in Santa Monica. Or was it tennis or volleyball? Sorry.
Beach tennis it was,
beach
on
tennis.
Santa Monica Beach. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love Santa Monica. I actually spent a summer in 2004 kind of living in that part. So I was at the beach every day. So walk people through and myself through what exactly did you do there? Like obviously you put on this event, but like what was the whole thing? And
Yeah. For me, a couple of years ago, about 2.5 years ago, I think it was, I remember being in a mentoring room
okay.
and with a group of people, and the talk was just so much about getting clients in the door, how you can get them in, get clients over the next 4 to 6 weeks or 3 months, and to me it just didn't make sense long term and sustainably.
Okay.
And I made a decision in that moment to, while everybody else was building relationships or building connections that were going to get them clients over the next few months, I was going to build relationships that were going to last me for the next 10 to 50 years.
Interesting.
And the last 2.5 years have been the building of that, and will continue to be, because it's been the most amazing thing that I could have ever done. And what happened out of that is deciding to run invite-only peer network events where quality entrepreneurs and influencers have the opportunity to come and connect with one another, build real relationships with one another, not selling or anything like that,
sure.
and build genuine relationships. And so, I did that in Australia for a period of time, and then there was the expansion to the US in March, and then the July events last year, again, just turns it up to another level, and thought, all right, well, let's have it. We just create some experiences for people as well, because allowing people to connect through experiences is just an amazing thing to be able to allow people to have. In terms of an experience. And so that was that. They would go, we did it over a lunch period in some nice places, beautiful food, great conversation. We'd have a magazine, a digital magazine that would come out with all profiles. And so that was 2016. This year, it's changed up a little again.
Okay.
And so people in the different parts of the world, you see where in the world is Cameron on the site, they have the opportunity to, for example, break through some pieces that have been holding them back maybe in their business or life, and then come and jump out of a helicopter in Switzerland, for example, or sea kayak with whales in Alaska, or really drive home that change. And again, it's me delivering and allowing people to experience cool things.
Sure.
Because for me, that's what life's really about. It's about experiences over things every day of the week. And if we can combine that with and blend that with the ability to create change in the world, then rock on.
No, I love that. And I also think like what I like about what you're doing too is when you put a bunch of people that may or may not have met each other, whether it's physically or online before, and you give them kind of an experience that they probably have never had before, you always remember that, right? And I think, and to your point, like you build these genuine relationships that last beyond, if you just go to a conference and you maybe meet a couple people you chat with, and you might connect with them on LinkedIn or whatnot, you probably never really chat with them again. You might say like, hey, how's it going? Like maybe once a year or something like that. But if you share kind of an intimate kind of experience doing something that maybe especially pushes you out of your comfort zone, you're way more likely to kind of stay connected with them and actually build a genuine friendship. And you may or may not ever do business or even exchange $1, right? But if you're in that part of the world again, or you might refer somebody to them, like I think that's what kind of building relationships is really about. And that's what I found has really worked well for me. And that's basically your whole thing, right? And that's what the Thriving Collective is all about. At least that's how I see you. And I think that's, to me, I think more people need to either become part of it or start doing what you're doing.
Yeah, you talk about relationships. I'll say this. I'm just going to say it straight up. Most people are probably pretty good at networking, or okay at networking, or even great at networking. Sure. What I've learned over the past couple of years as someone who would have previously thought that I was great at networking, it's in becoming outstanding at it. That's where all the opportunities are. It's
I've
where
never
the
heard it
friendships
put like
lie.
that. Yeah, fair.
It's where, because anybody can go in and have a decent conversation with someone, but having a follow-up system, being a genuine giver, getting out of your own way, so that you can be genuinely there for other people. Again, the same goes in terms of people not being pretty good or great at networking, but maybe not outstanding, and thinking that they've gotten the networking thing sorted. That's one of the biggest mistakes that people could make. Often when I'm working with someone on and helping them break through some of the barriers that are holding them back, whether it's building relationships or just on their personal self, I use an analogy of, imagine a bucket of water.
Okay.
And that bucket of water, it'll fill up, but if you've got one small hole in it, it'll fill up a little slower.
Sure.
And if you've got two small holes in it, it'll fill up a little slower again. And so, granted, you're great at certain things, and granted, there are certain aspects of your life or your business that you are outstanding at. But could it be that there are some pieces that need to be plugged up in order to allow that bucket to fill up much faster?
Sure.
And that can often allow the ego to get out of the way and say, right, I acknowledge that there's certain things that I could improve upon. And like I said, becoming the best version of yourself, becoming your own best friend, because anybody can go on LinkedIn over the next month and get another 500 connections. I could give you in 5 minutes and you could go do that straight away.
Sure.
But the ability to build genuine relationships, to be there for other people, to not need anything from anybody else because you're fully taken care of first and foremost internally, so that you can fully be there to serve other people. Then to have a key follow-up system, and then a follow-up system to compensate for their lack of follow-up system, because most people are filled with great intentions but a really poor follow-up system. And so you know that, then all of a sudden you become, and you share insights that they haven't thought of yet, you offer introductions that they haven't had yet or wouldn't have been able to have, and you build the relationships internationally. You know, I had a contact of mine in Estonia, and he's got a game show that they've been doing over there. He's a former politician, and I was thinking, I have no idea where I'm going to introduce this dude. And then lo and behold, the following week I spoke to a film producer in the US who said, I think I might know somebody who may be interested in talking with him. And so now they're in conversation.
That's amazing.
Another one, I was in LA, and there was an Uber driver, and his mum was a CEO of a company that I introduced to somebody that I met at one of the events I was speaking at in LA, who was promoting one of the inventions that have been created.
That's amazing.
These types of introductions can occur when you build genuine relationships.
Totally.
It is completely different to networking.
Totally.
And you, those listening in, if just some of you get this, it'll pay massive dividends, because I challenge you to find anything out there, any marketing or sales strategy out there that makes you feel this damn good.
Totally. Yeah, it's interesting, because I would even I've only realistically, it sounds like we're almost in the same boat a little bit, where you kind of figure this out in the last few years. You're still kind of playing with this. You're trying new things, which I really like. I would put myself in the same kind of boat as you, right? And the second you start doing what you're talking about, it may take weeks or months to kind of catch on a little bit. But the second it catches on, it snowballs so fast. And like, you start introducing people to other people, they start doing the same to you. And then like, you're in like 6 months or a year, just how far you've come and how many great relationships you've formed is like mind-blowing. And the people that you've met or connected people with, like if somebody would have asked me like 3 years ago, I would have been like, there's absolutely no way, right? And it sounds like you have the exact same experience.
Completely, dude. The people that I've been able to meet and interact with and connect with, from a dude who hadn't even been overseas until 2 years ago.
Totally.
It is absolutely phenomenal. And you build friendships, you build relationships, there's business opportunities, but you go into it in the way of building relationships. And like you said, there's a time, and those, if you're just getting started out with building relationships, you still offer to have a conversation with somebody and say, look, who could I introduce you to?
Sure.
Is there anybody I can keep an eye out for? Just that alone, just that asking of that is often enough for them to go, you know what, this person isn't just in it for themselves.
Totally.
They actually cared enough to ask me that question. And when I started, I had hardly anybody in my network. I had maybe 500 or 1,000 people on my LinkedIn profile.
Sure.
There's over 10,000 now in different countries around the world.
Sure.
Since being here, there's been probably introduced, I have to go back through, but over 100 people already. And we're only a small amount of time into the year.
Sure.
And I've been here for maybe 4 weeks. So, the amount of introductions you can make when you build the relationships and build the genuine relationships, because you then have the conversations with people and you're constantly looking out for who you can connect with one another.
Totally.
And you become this very valuable person in someone's network, somebody who will always, if someone wants a call with you, they can always reach you. You can always reach them, and they'll always take your call.
Totally.
Because you're not there to get something. And often this takes, I'll just say this as well, often it takes time. I was on the call to somebody yesterday. He was at my event last year in Manhattan.
Okay.
In July.
Okay.
And we got talking about how it's taken him about this length of time. We had a conversation just yesterday, how he was really skeptical of me to begin with.
Okay, interesting.
And quite rightly so. Most people are walking around right now with their guard up.
Sure.
And until they can be shown that it's safe to bring it down, because there's so many people that are trying to get stuff from other people. They're trying to sell them their products or services.
Yeah.
So the immediate reaction is, this person's reached out, I've got my guard up until you can show me otherwise, and you've got this bulletproof barrier
Sure.
between you and the other person that you've got to break through. You've got to show genuinely that you are there for them. And that comes down to being, again, having your own stuff taken care of so that you can be there for them. You can be vulnerable in a situation. You can trust them fully and be there, because when you bring that version of yourself to them, you give them the space to have the option to lower their barriers as well. And you'll be surprised at what that happens. Now, certain things are outside of your control, but often those conversations can happen really quickly. Others, it took 15 months, and now he said he's realized how genuine I am, and he's taken that period of time to do that. And there's stuff that we're going to work on together to help him open up more and to be more curious, and to overcome certain things that might have held him back from previous relationships, because there's some form of pain that has previously been there that's still impacting the ability for him to build relationships.
Sure. No, I think that's actually really good advice and a really good way of putting it, right? You're right. Most people are skeptical when you're trying to help them at first, because they think that it's very much this ulterior motive, okay, I'm just waiting for the guy to be like, okay, now buy my product. You're like, well,
yeah.
Sometimes but if you're not, I get that you obviously do kind of some speaking and coaching and on these events and whatnot. But
Absolutely.
the end of the day, when you're just genuinely trying to help somebody out, and then, eventually they're going to ask you kind of what you do and kind of how they can help you, because if you can help them, they can help you. And sometimes helping each other doesn't have to have money attached to it, right? And
Yeah.
I think people forget that all the time. There's some stuff that I do, even this show, I don't charge people to be on the show, because I want to have interesting conversations with people that I want to have conversations with. If I said, Cameron, can you be on the show, but you owe me money? You'd probably be like, you probably would have said no. To be fair, I would have said no to me, right? If I asked me, but for me, it's about having real connections and conversations with people, right? We may work together, we may not. Does it really matter? Absolutely not. But now that you and I are connected, it's if I'm out and about somewhere and somebody's like, oh, I need this. And I'm like, oh, Cameron's perfect for that. You make the introduction. It takes 30 seconds to connect you two on LinkedIn and say you know what, you guys should have a phone call. I think you guys could really benefit each other. Here's each other's LinkedIn profiles. You guys handle it from here, right? How long does that really take? 30 seconds, couple of minutes, maybe. Not that big of a thing, right? And I think to your point, that served me really well, and it's clearly served you really well in your career. And I think if you're right, if we can inspire one person or a handful of people to just get out there and start building these relationships, their career is going to take off astronomical.
Yeah, shift your the biggest recommendation I could make, just purely from the life that I'm living. Like, it's just
Sure, I love it,
crazy.
man. I love it.
It's insane to think that I'm here after where I was even a few years ago. That comes, as I mentioned before, it comes from the curiosity about what's possible.
Yep.
It comes from expanding your network globally because the possibility and the opportunity is there, and it opens you up to new ways of thinking. It opens you up to new levels of understanding about different people and different ways of doing business, which is just phenomenal in itself. And the world is a beautiful big place, and there are beautiful people in it. And so it doesn't matter where you are in the world now. You've got the opportunity to do that when you learn how to do it effectively. And to go to your point about being there to serve and being there to give and being able to offer those introductions, it doesn't take long, but it does take thoughtfulness.
Totally.
And it takes for somebody to, as I mentioned, to really and genuinely have a high level of emotional intelligence so that your own self is taken care of, so that you can fully give to other people and not need it from not need something from somebody else.
Sure.
Here's the thing with when it comes to being somebody of value. You can be of value to other people but believe you're not worth it internally, and then people will take advantage of you. Sure. Or you can be of value to other people knowing that you are worth it and knowing you'll get taken care of in some way, shape or form, but you don't need to know exactly where it's going to come from.
Sure.
Here's the thing. Science has proven it now, what the spiritual teachers have taught for many, many years, that we are all connected. And so if we're all connected, think about it. If we're all connected, then why do I need, if I'm going to introduce something to somebody to somebody else, why do I need something from that relationship specifically? If I'm giving to that and I know that I'm worthy of receiving in return, then I don't know where it's going to come from. I don't need to know. I'm not going to judge where it's going to come from. Sometimes it might come, if I send out and I give there, then maybe I'll receive it in health. Maybe I'll receive it in a friendship. Maybe I'll receive it in an experience. Maybe I'll receive it in another connection. Maybe there'll be a business opportunity. Maybe there'll be something else completely different that I hadn't even thought of yet. But if we're all connected, if everything is connected, then giving out and receiving back is all connected. And so we don't, in terms of the limiting thinking that occurs in a lot of people, is that because I give in that specific area, then I need something in return. And this is the short-sightedness that I see in so many people happens with their relationships as well. They think, well, if this person, I look at this person's profile, and I get this from time to time. There's plenty of people that are curious enough to have a conversation, but every now and then I'll get somebody who will look at my profile and then write a message back to me when I've said, hey, how about we catch up for a chat and see if there's any way we can add some value to one another. And the feedback will be, I don't see any synergies. Thanks, but no thanks.
Wow.
And there's been times where I've looked at the profile and there's been about 3 or 4 people that I've thought they are going to be killer introductions for them.
Totally. Yep.
And they have just missed out big time because of their lack of curiosity, their lack of flexibility, their lack of thinking, well, I wonder what's possible, and being expansive. And you still got to have boundaries in place and in terms of your own self. But there comes a time where the curiosity allows you to create things that you hadn't even thought was possible.
Totally. No, I 100% agree with you. So I'm curious, you kind of mentioned it pretty early on in the show. You've done some music, so kind of walk me through, like, what's the angle on that, or like why? Like, is it just a passion? Is it
or definitely a passion, and definitely a part of everything else as well. So I've been writing for 17 years now.
Wow.
One of the big songs for me was one about bullying and suicide that I wrote around the time of that experience happening and the boy committing suicide. That's called Close to the Edge, and it's reached over 1.6 million views now, and
wow, that's amazing,
on YouTube alone. And it's been used in it's been used in school projects and film projects in places all around the world, and it's been absolutely phenomenal to see the impact that something like that has created. And so going into, and I've used that in the speaking engagements that I've done, and then going into the studio again last year in LA. And getting onto a beautiful grand piano and having the full musicians in there to create a full production. We created one song about living an extraordinary life, and the other is about social isolation and how technology is impacting our mental health and what we can do about that. And those two songs have just been launched about 3 weeks ago to go with the Dream Live Give project. And they have full videos, video stories to go with them. The feedback has been just absolutely appreciative for being able to create something that has that bigger impact in the world. And so they now form part of the speaking engagements that I do. And those, from a keynote perspective, can have me on a grand piano on stage speaking about the specific topic and then performing it live on a grand piano on stage
awesome.
to leave. Yeah. So that's that, and it really is for me the music component and bringing this in is. It's not only showcasing that there's lessons to be learned, and when we blend that together, it can create a point of difference. But it's also showing people firsthand that you can utilize your own talents and strengths to make a positive impact in this world. And that's what the Dream Live Give project's all about. You dream big, you live fully and experience life fully, and then you utilize your unique talents and strengths to make a positive impact. And everybody has their own unique voice, their own reason why they're here. And it's about finding that. That's what I love coaching people on. It's what I love speaking on, ensuring that they find that, because it's the reason, that's the purpose behind why you're here. It's the meaning. It's what gives you fulfillment and allows you to feel like you're contributing to something bigger than yourself. So yeah, they're the primary reasons behind it. And I'm absolutely loving creating. And yeah, as I travel around the world, there's, like I said before, different places in different parts of the world that have grand pianos at the place that I'm staying at, so I can continue writing and recording some sounds of the world as well. I was out at a rainforest the other day, a few days ago, and recording sounds of waterfalls and getting video footage. And then when I'm in there's a castle here in Costa Rica that has a grand piano in it that I'm going to be going and staying at next month. And they'll go and record some music there, and then piece that together with the video footage and the nature sounds as well to create some beautiful pieces of work.
That's amazing, man. I love that, and I love how you took like a passion and brought it into kind of your daily, your daily kind of just day, I guess, right? Because some of your days working, some of it's performing, some of it's just playing, some of it's just writing, some of it's doing interviews with people like myself, right? I think. And being a part, like just having like bringing something that into kind of your work that you're passionate about that maybe isn't traditionally brought into, business, right? Like most, I've never seen a coach or a speaker, basically play songs during their thing. And I think that's unique and cool, right? That you bring something like that into it, right? And I think that's great. So, and I'm sure you get asked this a million times, but I'm curious to know, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but how do you, when somebody comes to you and says like, I need help with kind of, getting started with kind of this, what do you tell them? Like, how do they start kind of breaking down these kind of walls that they have, and how do they just decide to go for it one day?
It comes down to each individual person with this, but usually what's going on is there's something holding you back. And until you break through that, it's going to continue holding you back.
Okay. Is there
that might
examples of that?
Maybe? Yeah, definitely. So there could one of the most common ones I see is when somebody goes out to do something on their own, whether that's starting a business or changing a career to what they really want to do, what it is it ends up being, well, up until then you belonged somewhere, you fitted in somewhere. That could be fitting into a family unit, it could be fitting into a friendship group, it could be fitting into some other form of community that you have. And then when you decide to do something different that may be different to what other people had seen out there, there can be you stepping out on your own, and that's your own. You're faced with your own fears, you're faced with your own beliefs, you're faced with your own doubts as well as strengths. And what can often happen is we can possibly get judged, or we judge ourselves based on what we think other people are going to think of us. What if it fails? What if I go out on my own and I can't survive? it comes back to a survival mechanism. Is you think about it from caveman and cavewoman times. If a caveman or a cavewoman left the tribe, which is what we're talking about here, left the tribe to go and maybe start their own tribe, for a period of time there, if they're not strong enough,
sure,
there's a big chance the saber-toothed tiger is going to kick their ass, right?
Sure.
He's going to eat them up.
Yep.
And if that's the case, then what does it mean for their chances of survival? And so with that, there needs to be strength within self to be able to move through those fears that might otherwise hold somebody back. And so it really and genuinely comes down to breaking through, because if you imagine going into an experience of starting your own business. Let's say you're in a career and you're in a corporate role and you're looking at the boss going, I could do this better on my own. Seriously, this dude has got no idea what he's doing or what she's doing, right? Sure. And then you go out onto your own and 6 months later you go, what the hell have I gotten myself into? Because what's happened is there's a level of thinking that's been done for you in that organization that's allowed you to function at a level that allowed you to think, well, I could do this better on my own. Then all of a sudden, and the other thing about being a part of someone else's business, for example, or fitting into someone else's way of being is, like I said, there's some thinking that's already done for you, and you're not having to face the deep-rooted fears that might play out when you're truly faced with something like starting your own business. And there's other examples of that in terms of going into a relationship and maybe starting a career that you don't know if it's going to work or not. Those fears are what play out in a lot of people's minds, and a lot of people will buy into those fears versus learning how to harness them and utilize them to their advantage.
No, that's great, man. But sadly, we're out of time. So let's close the show with mentioning where people can get more information about yourself and the Thriving Collective online. Definitely.
I'm sure you probably put some show notes in the link, and but the primary one is thrivingcollective.com. That has where I am in the world. You can grab a checklist there and keep in touch. And there's all the social pieces from Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn as well. So which, like I said, you'll put those in there as well. Yeah. But first up, just go to Thriving Collective, become part of the community. Follow the journey and be a part of it. And would love to connect with you if you're going to be at different parts of the world. Whoever's listening in.
Sure. I think even just going to look at your Instagram or other, and just go look at the photos of the places you've been, I think in itself was interesting to me, right? Like when I was kind of looking you up when we first connected. So I don't know, just it was interesting. So Cameron, again, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day. Absolute pleasure, dude. It's been an absolutely great time, and really enjoyed it. Thanks, man. All right. Cheers. Okay, bye. Thanks for listening. The music for the show is done by Electric Mantra. You can check them out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.